Thank you for tuning in to the Natty News Daily podcast. This episode is brought to you in part by our sponsor, Core Nutritionals. You can check out corenutritionals.com for all your supplement needs and use code Natty News Daily at checkout to save 20%. Enjoy the episode.
What's happening, people? Welcome to another episode of Natty News Daily. We just got the boys on tonight. We're just going to shoot the shit about natural bodybuilding, the state of natural bodybuilding as we close out 2022. We're coming at this from different perspectives. James and I have had athletes compete. I competed myself this year. The three of us have been at shows as spectators, as commentators at the Mr. America. So, I think it would just be kind of a cool little discussion, the three of us, about, the way natural bodybuilding is right now with regards to the quality of shows, quality of competitors, things we've seen, things we've liked at shows, disliked at shows. Because, recently, the last year or two, obviously with everything that's going on, it looked like natural bodybuilding was kind of taking a downward spiral there for a little bit. It wasn't looking too good, but, first kind of observations on this year, things are looking to be on the uptick, which is really, really good. So let's, Dan's really talkative. Let's get Dan in the mix with your initial observation on the natural bodybuilding world right now.
Yeah,
Here's for the hot take.
I think it does. A hot take. Okay, well, I think I have that in mind. So I think on the net, I think Leroy nailed it. I think it does seem to be kind of coming back up. So I think there is a large discrepancy in quality of production and lighting that I'm seeing. So that is, I guess, one downturn. I think the US, I mean, obviously there's a wide range of shows, but I think on the net, the US is doing horribly in that regard. So there's the hot take. On the other side, I think the guys in the UK in with the BNBF, WNBF UK, in Germany, they're doing an excellent job with lighting over there. Really putting on great productions there. So and I think you're seeing, I've been noticing German natural bodybuilding seems to have a decent following there, and in the UK, natural bodybuilding also has a pretty good following. So I don't think the fact that the production is really good in Europe, and the quality and just how many people are following it and the engagement and how excited people are about it, and social media stir, I don't think those are disconnected. I think those are directly intertwined. So I've loved to see, through Natty News, we see a lot of I see a lot of athletes from Europe, which I wouldn't necessarily be exposed to otherwise. So I love to see that, and I think that's something us guys in the US, like I said, there's some shows that are doing a great job, but I would like to see, some shows do that better and take after the European guys.
They have so few shows over there, right? I think it's just if you've got 3 shows in a season to really nail with regards to production, I think you're going to put the extra mile into that. Whereas if you have multiple shows a month, for example, maybe you can get away with not, I'm not saying it's an excuse because I don't think it is, but it's just maybe you can get away with we just got to get a venue. Whereas I think, with us looking at running a show next year, one of the things that we want to make sure is it's a good venue and good lighting. That's why I'm going in person to check it out. I want to see what's the setup look like, because if, this conversations we've had numerous times on this podcast, right? But if the lighting's not good, you don't get good photos on stage. You don't get a good stage experience. The judges don't get a good look. It just can sour the whole event. And you hit it on the head there. Europe seems to be really nailing that whole bodybuilding atmosphere with their shows.
I'd say, Dan, you hinted at there's a better following over there too, right? And I think that's exactly why there's a better following. How many pro cards are handed out in the UK each year, right? Very, very minimal amounts. It's a coveted thing. It's very hard to get, whether, whichever the divisions and organizations you're in. US, there's pro qualifying shows every single weekend in multiple states. There is an organization to be unnamed, if you're in the sport, you know who I'm referencing, that prides themselves on having a show year round, right? Every single month there's a show. I don't think that's a good thing. Honestly, I don't think it is, because it takes away from it. There's no hype, there's no build up. There's just like, oh, I'll do this show and then I'll do that one and then I'll do this and then we can go this one this weekend. And it's just, you need to have an off season so that it builds that excitement for the competitive season for the fans and the competitors. And then you get less pros, and then getting a pro card becomes a higher honor. And then the people that are getting the pro cards are of a higher quality. So then the fans see that, right? And it's not just like, I don't want to diss anybody that's got a pro card because I don't have one, right? So like I haven't even made it there. Um, but you see some people, and it's like, like that's a good physique, right? But then you see some of the guys coming out of Germany that win their pro card, and it's like, holy shit, like look at that, right?
Yeah.
Like the level of competitiveness it's different.
Yeah.
It's absolutely different.
Well, even at Worlds this year, the middleweight champ, I think Fabian was his name. He's from Spain, like a godlike physique, right? But over there, same thing, right? Like the number of shows is so much lower, and then the opportunity to turn pro. So when you have, it's no surprise that a lot of European athletes are coming and winning shows over here when the best of the best over there are turning pro, because the opportunities are so little, right? If you have one athlete over the course of a season that's going to win a pro card, you can bet they are the best. Whereas over here, in multiple federations, right? Not just, pinpointing one federation, because a lot of them have maybe too much going on. But you get that vast discrepancy where there's pros over here that will give the European pros a run for their money for sure. But then there's pros over here that are like, they're not going to hold a candle to them, right? And that's where maybe that's kind of watering down things a little bit, especially over here. But it's not that simple, right? Because at the end of the day, they're trying to run a business, they're trying to make money, which is a whole other thing. But you do get that discrepancy in quality for sure.
Well, I mean, I don't think anyone would argue that if you're in the sport, there are strong shows and there are weak shows in the US, right? If you're abroad and you have one show, like that's it, right? There is no weak show because everybody is going to that one. So you're tested against the best of the best that are competitive in that season.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've seen shows where there's 40 athletes in the show. That's across all divisions. And Christopher, the guy that competed at the Natural Olympia and then competed at the INBA British Finals there, he won a class of 40 bodybuilders, right? So you figure there's shows over here that have 40 athletes across bodybuilding, men's physique, bikini, figure, blah, blah, blah. And over there, one division is 40 athletes, right? And especially 40 bodybuilders, which over here, I mean, that's pretty unheard of to see, I mean, at a lot of shows around here, to see north of like 10 or 15 bodybuilders is quite rare, unless it's a big, a national event or a pro show, for example. But I mean, over there, these 40 athletes, and to be fair, like 20 of them are probably pretty damn good, right? So to
if
be
not
that,
more, honestly,
for sure, yeah. I mean, that there's a random number, right? Like a lot of them are extremely impressive, and of all across all age categories. There's some juniors over there that would probably smash a pro qualifier over here.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, I've seen shows now. I've competed in the States, live in Canada, so I've seen kind of shows in both countries, and I will say that we've had a pretty good uptick in like number of athletes up here just within natural bodybuilding. Shout out to Chris Wong, who runs the King Kong Classic, which was 3 weeks ago now. I had some competitors in, but they set the record for, within the CPA anyways, the biggest natural event in history, which was super cool to be a part of. And it was massive. They had 250 athletes, I think, total. And that was just for a regional event. That wasn't for their national event, which was, they actually beat that registration for the national event this year. So that would, you would expect next year's nationals to be pretty damn big, but it was It was unreal. His production was awesome. Lighting was awesome. He had a big LED screen in the back, which was great. And the place was packed. There was probably 300 or 400 people in the audience. So it felt like an event, right? It was there's a big difference between like the high school gym and then what that was, right? And that's where, again, there's that massive discrepancy, with natural bodybuilding where events are held, with some of them being just a stage in a conference room, and that's it, a black curtain in the back, and that's all it is, right? This is supposed to be some extravagant bodybuilding event, and there's crickets. Whereas that, I mean, there's music going, and they got people cheering and yelling, and audience is excited, competitors are excited, and it's just that's an event. And that's what I hope more of that happens, because it does, it makes it that much better for sure. We were at the Mr. America doing commentary. That right now is probably the standard bearer for what natural bodybuilding could be. I mean, obviously he did it right with like an expo and stuff like that, but that aside, with regards to like the production of the show and everything that went into that, like you felt like you were at like a legit event.
Absolutely. Yeah, and not just the size of everything, right? Like the music, the MC, the awards, the everything. Like every little detail matters, and that the athletes will remember all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's treated like a professional event, which, it shows, and it's how it should be, my opinion.
Yeah, 100%, right? If you're advertising a pro show, right, and you're going to see these, what are supposed to be professional athletes, and it's at a gymnasium, it's like, oh, like these are supposed to be like incredible natural bodybuilders, and the bodybuilders may be amazing, but the way they're presented is lackluster. Even if you're looking at potentially some of the best physiques in the world, if you're sitting there with like paint peeling on the wall and like lights, like shitty lighting, and the black curtain in the back, it just you might not even pay attention to what's on stage, because you're just like, this is like, what am I, in someone's basement? Like, this isn't good. Yeah,
that would be an extreme.
That's hey, it can happen. So let's talk about what we've seen with physiques, with what natural bodybuilding, kind of the direction the physiques are going, because we've seen obviously Mr. America, we saw the Orton Cup, we watched WNBF Worlds just went down, and then all the other shows we've been to and seen. What are you seeing with the quality of competitor?
I think this year was a very, very strong class. I don't know if
class
it was just
of 2022.
I mean, just tough, right? Like you look at, obviously, like the Mr. America that's a premier show, right? So the best of the best are going to come to that. Some like big names, everyone wants that title. But I mean, every single one of those guys is either a champion of a different federation or could be, right? So you got, what was it, like 12, 15 people that are just like spectacular. You drop any one of those into a small regional show, and it's like not even a competition, right? Not even a comparison to the other athletes. So now that could be like the exception, but I think across the board we saw a lot more numbers in general, and we saw a lot of young athletes at the shows that we were at that kind of came out of nowhere and were very, very solid competitors. So I think the next generation coming up too, if we're going to say that the Mr. America was like the older generation, the established bodybuilders, like there was some very good young kids at the Rochester show, at the Syracuse show that we were at, even at Mr. America. Some of the amateurs were very competitive.
Yeah, I mean, like, we're kind of, it's weird to say, but we're kind of like graduating up to being like that, that middle generation. But yeah, like between 19 and 22, 23, there's some quality coming up through the ranks. And I think they're just, I think more people are just learning how to do it better earlier, right? Like, when we first started, we were still getting information from like magazines and just, Arnold's chest workout on bodybuilding.com. Whereas now, I mean, a lot of these younger athletes are working with like quality coaches early, whether it be Cliff or 3DMJ or whatever. So they're getting knowledge early, and then online, obviously there's tons of information with how to optimize this and make this better and tweak this and do that. So there's probably less time spinning your wheels and just like throwing darts for the sake of it. And now they're really hitting the ground running right from like 18 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish I could go back and do that.
What about you, Dan? What do you think?
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, I was exposed to 3DMJ, right around I want to say like 2015-ish time frame. I think they were doing their thing before that, but it takes a while for these things to kind of you know yeah catch their stride. So yeah, guys like I mean, and we're kind of in that middle range. I mean, I'm 29. I mean, we're still younger, but I mean, I'm 29. I'll be 30, in a few months here, and yeah, I mean, I kind of caught that, into my 20s, that information. But if you get athletes that are lifting in high school and then picking up that information at 14 and then carrying it,
Yeah.
it's like, I think that
Yeah.
it can make an impact.
Oh
So there's
yeah.
just
Like
so much information.
I think of what I did with training in my last off season. So I would have been, 26, 27, 28. Like if I had that information to then apply at 18, 19, 20, and then tack on another 10 years on that, like where would I have been? Right. Like
Yeah.
it's going to be probably pretty scary to see the next crop come up. Right. Just because they're getting a lot of the things figured out quicker.
Yeah. And I mean, inevitably, like, as you progress with training age, you start kind of knowing not very much, and then you progress in knowledge, and but just the availability is just higher now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well,
I
even the stuff that we like as a group or as an industry bicker about and say like, well, this is right, this is wrong, is still light years ahead of like the wrong information that we had growing up, right? Like it's just like we're arguing over minutia now, but we all agree that like, hey, you should probably like, these volume landmarks and this intensity and maybe, this train multiple times a week is probably a little bit better. Like those are just almost accepted now where we were doing stupid stuff when we were young.
Yo,
Like,
what's the dumbest thing you believed when you started training that you did?
I don't know about like dumbest thing I believed, but like dumbest thing I did was like I ran German volume training multiple times for like months and was just like murdering myself. Like
Oh
I
yeah.
passed out underneath the squat bar multiple times and like the safeties caught me because I was just out.
10
I
by
was like,
10.
well, that's I'm just training hard. That's what I got to do to grow, right? Like,
What
like
about you,
idiot.
Dan? What about you, Dan?
I did somewhat similar in a different light. Yeah, like too much volume. I remember for a decent period of time, I was squatting and deadlifting 3 times a week each. Like every other
Bad
day, I
record.
was either squatting or deadlifting, which is just really dumb.
I
And
took
like for like 6, 8 sets, like stupid amount of sets, yeah, dumb.
I took the post workout anabolic window way too seriously. I remember when I was in high school in grade 12, we had a course and it was like a exercise whatever course, but we went to the local YMCA for first period and we got to train and then we would do like assignments on like workouts and shit. But I remember after my workout, I had a shaker in my bag and I would take it to the shower and like drink it while I was showering. And like the crazy part is like all the boys like were like, yeah, man, that's legit. Like you got to do that or your workout's wasted. Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy though.
Well,
Like, and that's just like that's one example from the three of us. But we could probably do a whole podcast on dumb shit we did when we started. But imagine all that just like not happening.
Yeah, right. I wouldn't have been as chunky as I was, yeah, because some of my food choices were
Yeah,
questionable looking
bulking.
back,
People
right?
don't
Yeah.
people don't bulk anymore.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
not to the
even
point
like
where we got fat.
not even like intentionally bulking, but like I just didn't even realize like macros, right? Like I was like, I need protein, all right. And Bubba burgers are cheap because they're frozen burgers, and I'm college and I'm poor, so I'll eat like 3 burgers a night. You look at the fat on those things. I was eating like 90 grams of fat just in one meal. Like maybe 40 grams of protein from 3 burgers because it's just all fat. I was like, I'm gonna get jacked off this. That's easy.
Yeah, yeah.
Good times.
Dumb
Do you
shit.
think some of that might be with the social media era might be negatively impactful in terms of the push to stay lean or the pressure to stay lean?
I mean, I've seen it with clients, like for sure, where I have like, especially younger clients where they're like, yeah, man, like I want to get big. I'm like, okay, cool. And they're like, but like, I don't want to lose my abs, man. I'm like,
I think it depends on what circle they end up in, right? Because you have your like the circle of people that like find themselves with the 3DMJ, the Steve Hall, the RP, and those guys are like, no, like I gotta gain a little bit of weight, and that's what's gonna happen. And they've like heard those things said enough where they accept it. Or you have the people that like find the fitfluencer first and the like TikTok star. They're like, I need to be like him and do everything he does, and then you have to like unwind all of that after the fact. So
yeah,
I think it's like who's the first role model, because that's going to be the most
Yeah.
impactful.
yeah, that's actually a really good point. Because
Yeah.
yeah, if you're exposed to the right information right away, then you're good. But if you fall, and unfortunately, the right information can be hard to find. Like you got the plague of fitfluencers, and then you've got like the one, like Steve Hall is just like, yo,
Yeah. Hey, I'm
lose
here.
the abs for a little bit, man. And then you got
Yeah.
the other guys that are like, no, man, shredded.
Yeah. With your broccoli
Yeah.
tops and cross earrings.
Have you seen that
Feel
the guy that's the guy that he did a video with Tristan Lee, I just saw it, and Greg Doucette, but it was like he's like, do these, and he like shakes his arm, and he's like, if you want these, do these, and he's doing like curls and stuff. Like it's just, but it's like 12 million views, and we're gonna do this podcast and get like 12, and we're putting out good shit.
That's how life is.
Frustrating.
Got to say more controversial things and do stupid stuff, and then maybe people care about us.
Yeah.
You know how to do that. Get me to do that.
That might be controversial for the wrong reasons, though, Dan.
We just want to educate people, not get the podcast canceled. So looking ahead at 2023, what do you hope to see out of natural bodybuilding besides better lighting?
Yeah. I personally want to see more live streams. And that's not just because I'm
And
biased
commentary done by Natty News Daily.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is like super biased, but no, it just like if you want to grow the sport, you got to let people see the sport. And I get that like a paid live stream, cool, like you make extra revenue, and like there's not a lot of money in the sport, so maybe that's some way you give back to the sport by like flipping that money into better production. But there's obviously a happy medium there too. Like if you're not going to go free, I think it needs to be an affordable live stream, because some of these, especially if the quality is not good, like I've seen some where it's like a $45 live stream from someone's iPhone. Like that's not right, and that's not okay.
Yeah.
And that's a barrier to growing the sport, right? If you truly want to grow the sport, make it a price point that people can afford, and like casual people will kind of like sign up for, and not just the person's mom that wants to see it. But yeah, I think that's my big one, is like grow the live streams, grow the commentary, make it like a true sport. Anything that you turn on the TV and watch, that's you're hearing a play by play, and I think that'll grow it a lot.
Yeah. Dan?
Yeah, I agree with what James said. And just continue to make professional events and present professional events. And we covered that deeply or in depth earlier in the podcast. But yeah, I think I just want to see professional events and really showcasing athletes in the light that they deserve.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like you hear promoters and stuff say that they want athletes treated better and they need to be like more exposed with the public image and stuff like that, but they're not giving a platform to do it, right? Like if you, again, like we talked about earlier, if you get photos that are bad lighting, I mean, I think Bearcat spoke about this, where the one show he competed in, he didn't want to post any of the photos because he didn't like them. So
From
if
MASH last year,
yeah, so if you have,
which I same, I competed there and I think I posted one.
yeah, right. So if you have multiple athletes not promoting themselves, not promoting the sport as a whole because they don't like what they're getting out of it, times that by however many shows don't have the good production, then the sport's not going to grow, right? Like the athlete can be the biggest marketing of all if they're happy with what they're getting. I mean, it's a no-brainer, right? Because they're going to be promoting the show, they're going to be promoting the photos, and then people are going to be like, oh wow, like that's impressive. Whereas if you're getting potato photos that you don't share, no one's going to know about it, and then things will continue to dwindle. But on the flip side, the cream of the crop shows will get bigger, right? Your Mr. Americas, the King Kong Classic I mentioned earlier, they had an amazing production. Their photos were great. Those shows are going to continue to have record-setting numbers, and then maybe you'll see the smaller, shittier ones die off, which might not be a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully, yeah. Like I said, I don't think numbers are helping us in this sport right now.
Yeah. Cool. All right, people. Well, if you enjoyed that episode, let us know, and obviously subscribe so you don't miss out on future ones. And this will be up later, but thank you to everyone that participated in the Natty News 2022 awards. Hopefully, this is some Inception shit right now, but hopefully it was as big, if not bigger, as last year's, which went over really well. And for everybody that won, congrats to future you. Past us is happy for you.
We're not predicting the future here.
Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one.